So let me just go to here.
Just teasing.
We're setting up for custom streaming services.
Okay.
Okay.
So you let us know. I'm ready.
Looks
And
like
thank
we're
you
live.
everyone for
Oops, sorry.
what
We're
said.
ready.
I said
You're
it looks like
live.
we're live.
You're live.
We live?
You're ready. You're live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another set of these presentations. This actually is the sixth one of a series that I have entitled Latinos Leadership 2020, Honoring Our Past, Transforming Our Present, and Leading Our Future. And in this series, what I have tried to do is look at a historical account of Latino leadership between the year 2000 and 2020. And many people have asked me why 2000 and 2020. And my reasoning is this: needless to say, everyone in this conversation has been part of that, has been many other individuals. But there is a book out there, Latinos in New England. And there is such a chapter number 5. The title of it is Growing into Power in Rhode Island. And what that book details is how we have grown into political power and what made us successful to do that. Because interestingly enough, during the time that we were growing into power, we were being observed by the rest of New England because what we were achieving was not being achieved in other New England states. So I read that book many years ago. It was published in 2006. I bought it. It caught my attention, and I have kept it as reference and as historical account of what we have achieved. And that's why I decided that, you know what, it's 20 years now, from 2000 to 2020. We continue to accomplish more power and we continue to grow. But during that, the planning, I had planned to do this 2 years ago, and then I postponed it to 2020. And then COVID came. And then when COVID came, I was going to postpone it for next year. But then one day I was laying there in bed and I said to myself, you know, Tomas, what happened? Okay, so COVID is still here. COVID is not going anywhere. And what could have happened if you was one of the victims of COVID? Then this history would have been gone, what you would try to share. And that's when I decided, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it virtually. And that's why we're doing it here. And the other thing is that, needless to say, what I'm getting a lot accolades about is from the younger generation, the millennials, the Generation Cs, who don't know a lot of the history that happened within the last 20 years because they were too young. So that is part of an educational process, unintentionally, but that is what's happening. So that's why we are here. And tonight we have 3 very special ladies in all of the essence of the word. But let me say why I invited these 3 young ladies for tonight. In those 20 years that I am accounting, we have elected 3 Latino mayors and 4 council presidents between 2020 and 2020. But interestingly enough, the 3 mayors and the 4 city councilors we have elected between 2010 and 2020, just within the recent 10 years. So, I mean, that is amazing. And besides amazing, is something that we should be proud of. So tonight, I have with me, uh, starting from my left, Council President of the City Council of Providence, Sabina Matos. Hello, Sabina. To my immediate right, we have the Town Council President, Suzy Alba, from the town of Smithfield. Hello, Suzy.
Hi, Tomas.
And last but not least, from the great city of Central Falls, all cities are great, by the way, we have my other good friend, Maria Rivera, president of the Central Falls City Council. Hello, Maria.
Hi, buenas noches.
And once again, thank you for taking this invitation. Thank you for making it happen. So we're going to start the conversation. And the way I usually do is I allow each one 1 to 2 minutes to do an opening remark. And then from there, we take off. So whoever wants to start with the opening remarks.
I can start. So, Tomas, I first want to thank you for this opportunity. I think it's extremely important for us to continue having these conversations about mujeres y personas de color en estas posiciones. So I want to thank you for that. I'm happy to share the space with my other 2 colleagues and presidents of their cities and towns. I'm Maria Rivera, the City Council President of the City of Central Falls. This is my second term in office. It's been extremely overwhelming. The amount of support that I've gotten from the community has been very overwhelming. I love working with the community. If you would have asked me 5 years ago what my future plans were, I would have never said I was going to run for office. So I truly have to thank the Latina Leadership Institute, who opened that door for me and prepared me for, and opening my eyes actually, for something that I had no idea that I would have a passion for. I truly have a passion for working for the community, which that's always been a passion, but running for office was never something that I had thought about. And after I've been in office, I know now that this is something definitely that I like, that I love to work with the community, that I love to listen to the issues that we're having right now, that we have all the time, and address those issues. So, working hand in hand with the community as an elected official is extremely important. And I think we can all agree that the reason why the 3 of us are in these positions is because this is the way that we work. We work hand in hand with the community and we listen to them.
That was great. I can go next. That was great, Maria. I'm also really honored to be asked to be part of this evening. Thank you, Tomas, and great company with Sabina and Maria. Just a little bit of background, and I say that because I'm excited about the conversation this evening. My father was born in Havana, Cuba. My grandparents immigrated here to Providence in 1966, and very, very few Cubans in Rhode Island at all. We were one of 2 families for decades in the area. I'm very proud of that, very proud of my heritage. Just by way of historical heritage background on myself, but also, like Maria, running for office was never something, politics was not part of my upbringing. It was never uttered, the words were never uttered at home. Both of my parents worked many, many jobs, so I was very much as much a product of them as I was my community. The town where I grew up in East Providence, which is a melting pot, very, very diverse community. And I had made up of the most amazing families and people who took care of me as their own. So I think a lot of, my background and my upbringing, impacted my desire to give back, right, to the community and give back to the state that was so good to my family when they immigrated here, almost 60 years ago, 50 or more years ago, and then certainly in the 38 years that I've been alive. But I will say that, I'm incredibly proud to be in elected office in Smithfield and in Rhode Island. This is my 4th term on the Smithfield Town Council, so I'm running for my 5th term, finishing out 2 years as council president. There's nothing like municipal government at all. I always tell young people and folks who are interested in public policy and getting involved in their communities that you really want to start at home, right? I give kudos to people who want to run for higher office right away, jump right into a general office seat or a senator or a representative, but there's nothing like, all politics is local. There's nothing like being able to make a difference for my neighbors, literally and figuratively. And over these almost 8 years, I've just met such amazing people who live here in Smithfield. Now that I'm a mom, of course, to a little boy also, I think the stakes are even higher for me to make sure that our community and our town is thriving. So I'm really excited again about this conversation. And I know that there are many, many Latino elected officials, not just council presidents and mayors. And we get together fairly often, thanks to Secretary of State Nelly Gorbea. But I know that, you know, what the Latinx or Latino Hispanic population of Rhode Island looks like is very different, where, you know, I am of mixed heritage, but very proud of that, and serving in a town like Smithfield that's predominantly white, predominantly conservative. So I think a lot of what we perceive Latino leadership to be, or the issues facing our people and our community is very different today. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to the conversation this evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tomas, for the invitation. And likewise, it's a pleasure for me to be here with Council President Maria Rivera and Suzy Alba. It's good to be in good company. So I know Tomas knows my history in community and in politics. I think I met Tomas when I was doing work study at Chispa. So it goes back some time.
Oh my God.
I think that was the first time when we met.
Yes.
And but in reality, I never thought I was going to be running for office either, just like the other two council presidents have said. And it's very typical for females. If you look at all the research, it says that for females, you got to ask us 7 times to run for office in order for us to do it. For males, it's not easier. Males, most of the time, says, yeah, I'm going to do it, and just do it. We start thinking about all the reasons why we cannot do it and why I'm not ready, I need more time. So in my case, it was the same situation. And honestly, I was involved in my community. I remember I never thought I was going to run for office. I got involved through the Rhode Island Latino Political Action Committee, and also with the Civic Fund, through my friendship with Melba de Peña, como decimos nosotros.
Right.
So through my friendship with her, I got involved with some campaigns. Eventually, 2 council members approached me and asked me to run for office. The Councilman Miguel Luna and Councilman Luis Aponte invited me to Miguel's house and asked me to run for office. The first thing I said is no, I'm not going to run for office. They told me, you know, don't make a decision right now. Go away, think about it, and let us know. And then after thinking about it, thinking about where I was in my life and a transition from my college, my career, I thought that was a good time. And I said, I have nothing to lose. If I win, I'm going to be able to get a lot of things accomplished and help my community. If I lose, well, I gained the experience. So, and I didn't win the first time I ran for office, and which was quite an experience. But and in the second time around, I didn't think I was going to run for office, and I did it again. So, but yeah. So you never, I never saw myself as a candidate. I really enjoy helping other candidates. I really enjoy election days. Oh my God, all the adrenaline going on. Did we contacted this person? Did we got this person? That's really what I really enjoyed. And I never thought I was going to be the candidate. And here I am today.
You know, and it's interesting listening to all 3 of you, because none of you had thought about running. And what I find is that very few people do I meet who say, oh yeah, since I was 6 years old, I plan to run for office. Most people have don't plan that way. But, you know, among what every one of you mentioned, the other part is that, as Suzy mentioned, Rhode Island is not the Rhode Island of, you know, back in the 60s, not even back in the 90s. And I say that because I remember in the 90s, one of the concerns was, you know, in the general politics, where are the women? How come women are not running for office? Charlie Bass, I still have many articles, many editorials that he wrote asking that question. And then very much the other part that I want to touch is what Councilman Matos mentioned, because we saw that when we started, before we started the PAC, actually it was with Victor campaign. One of the things that we noticed was that 96% of the individuals, of the volunteers in that campaign were women.
Yeah.
Were women. And if you look at most campaigns across the country, it's the same thing. So that's when we started thinking, we say, we have an issue because most of the women are in the background and we need to bring them to the front. And then the other, in my particular case, back in the mid-90s, I read an article, a research paper from California that stated that Latinos needed to change their tactics because male were running for office. Yet the research said that Latinas were more electable than Latinos. And I must say that in Rhode Island, it has been proven many times over. So now we have, out of the 4 council presidents that we have had, only 1 has been a Latino, or the 3 are right here. And I mentioned that in the essence that, the other part is the path that could happen. And I'm not making any projection. Well, I can say it because we already have somebody who could become the first Latina mayor in the state of Rhode Island. And that is the truth of each one of you. What I have in front of me is initially the next Latina mayor, the possible Latina governor, and who knows how far each one of you can go. So I want to start with Council President Rivera, who very much already set in that path, and very much is what has been your experience as Council President?
So I'm not sure, everybody here on the panel knows that for me, everything has happened very quick, right? Usually you have to be in office for a certain amount of time. And a lot of the times you have to ask your colleagues on the council or in whatever position for their support in order for you to be in that position. With me, everything has happened really quick, right? Our terms are only 2 years. I did the 2 years. And by my second term, I actually had the council president at the time ask me if I would agree to be the council president. And I thought about it and I said yes. And I also said to him, I'm not going to ask anybody else for their support, right? I felt that I didn't have to ask everybody for their support. If they believed in me and they wanted me in that position, they would vote for me. And by the grace of God, because I am extremely blessed, it was a unanimous decision and they all voted for me to be the council president. So my first term, I focused on just having the conversations with the community and understanding what being a council member was, right? Understanding the budget, just listening and take it all in, all the good and all the bad. As council president, I feel like I moderated a little bit the way the council works. So our council meetings would last 4 and 5 hours.
Wow.
And many times there were no solutions. Like we would have these conversations of just bickering back and forth, positive things, negative things with no solutions. Now on the council, I've made it a point that our council meetings should not go past 8 o'clock. And as the council president, you set the standard, right? You have so much time to talk. If we are on the subject, we can continue having the conversation. But if we're not on the topic, there's no reason to continue the conversation. We need to continue the conversation about whatever is on the agenda, not the going back and forth. So our council meetings now are more organized. The council is happier. The clerk is a lot happier. Public comment is more organized. We give the opportunity, which we did before, give the opportunity for public comment, but now we have, like everybody gets 5 minutes. They have enough, 5 minutes is more than enough unless it's a bigger issue, which we could extend it. And just having that relationship as the council president with the mayor, I think it's extremely important to work with the council. And I've worked very hard with the mayor, in making sure that we can work well together. And that does not mean that I agree on everything that the mayor wants, because we agree to disagree. But this past year and a half, we've agreed a lot more than disagree. And when we disagree, we try to come to terms where everybody on the council is okay with the decision that we're making, because it's going to benefit the community. This is not about Maria Rivera. This is not about Mayor James Diosa. This is not about any of the council members either. This is about what the decisions we make now at the council level. How is this going to affect our community? And is it for good or is it for bad, right? And if we don't agree with it, then we need to speak up and say, we don't agree with this. We need to do something about it. And I can give you an example. We're getting a train station in the city. An ordinance was presented to us, and we're all concerned about gentrification. We held that ordinance for a few months until we could get a housing trust in place. So myself, Councilwoman Jessica Vega, and Councilman Jonathan Acosta worked really hard to make sure that we got a housing trust in the city that's going to be able to help the community that we have here and fight back on the gentrification. So we've done a lot of work. There's a lot more that can be done. I know that you spoke a little bit about what my year has been like. Everything has been, like I said, really fast. And now I'm running for mayor, which I still tell people, you need to pinch me. But again, this is not about Maria Rivera. The community has put me here. Exactly. 5 years ago, I never thought about this. And this is what the community wants. They have asked for this. The support has been extremely, extremely overwhelming. I wake up every day. I swear I wake up every day with either a text message or a message on my social media with somebody saying a prayer for me or telling me they had a dream about me, about my future. So, I am letting God lead the way for me. And we're going to continue moving Central Falls forward. The mayor has done an excellent job. For those of you who come to Central Falls often, you can see the difference, right? When he took over the city, there were a lot of houses boarded up. The city was not as clean as it is right now. We didn't have as many businesses. The city's a lot cleaner. We have so many more small businesses in the city. People are welcoming, but there's still a lot of work that we have to do. And I'm very much looking forward to all the work we're going to be able to accomplish with the community and my colleagues in government, right? Because this is not about me. This is about all of us working together and continuing to move Central Falls forward.
Thank you. President Alba.
Sure, I have a lot to say on this topic, actually, about women and sort of how we get to where we are and how we think about where we're going to go. I will say, I think that gender and age sort of come hand in hand. I would have to say that you're seeing many more millennials running for office, millennial women like myself. I just make it as a millennial by 1 year, my date of birth. So the older we get, we cling on to those things. So, I think for me, my youth and my gender are something I'm very proud of. I do feel innately, though, and I don't apologize for this, that women they are amazing leaders in the public sector and otherwise. I think we're compassionate. We have grit. I think we make great mentors. We're willing to ask for help. All of those things were what I saw in women that inspired me all the way from high school through college, and then now in my work, both at Rhode Island College and then as a town councilwoman. So, I think, as Sabina mentioned, I also love campaigning and knocking on doors and listening to people. And I think people are much more willing to open a door for a woman, yes, to be honest. And I think that, and I don't know why, but I think I've been, over the last 4 terms, very successful because, we have partisan elections in Smithfield, which can be very difficult. You have Republicans and Democrats that run for so many seats in town government, but I never really, as proud as I am about, my party affiliation, I really ran as Suzy Alba, as, as a mother, as a wife, as a public servant, as a higher education leader. It just being who you are, I think, is what takes everyone so far. And I know people who think about running for office, they're like, I don't know enough, right? I'm not an expert, or, you don't have to be. You have to have the passion, your integrity, your drive. And then for your community, and all of those things follow. So what I did want to say is, because of my gender, I think, but also my youth, I looked at things differently in Smithfield. So the town had been run for many years by folks who have been involved for decades, and we needed some fresh ideas. And, so I helped spearhead a youth commission that we're starting this year. Started a girls leadership program for high school students. Again, all of these things have to happen early, right? Helping right now to build a brand new elementary school, and spearheaded, a $45 million bond that's going to, transform our public education elementary schools in Smithfield. So all of those things are through the lens of sort of looking at the future, right? And making things better for the youth. So I think, I'm happy to see more women running. I think when women run, they win. I'm happy to see more young people running, because we're the future, right? Millennials and folks that are even younger than us, the three of us and four of us, quite frankly, are the future. But I'll close by saying, I can't speak enough to getting involved on the local level. I didn't talk a little bit about this, but before I ran for office, I also was involved in town boards and commissions, and board of directors and nonprofit organizations, and got involved in organizations like Leadership Rhode Island. So I think that, folks, you have to have someone, I think, that inspires you and asks you to run, or tells you you need to run. And I've been trying to be that person for other folks. I'm not ashamed to say I recruited a ton of people to run for office this year in Smithfield, and a few of them are Republican women who are running for town council. And people would say, Suzy, why would you do that? They're your opponents, right? And I'd say it doesn't matter to me what party they're from. I'm approaching my 10th year if I'm elected again on the council, and I have plans for the future, and I want to bring others up. Doesn't matter what party they are, as long as they have a passion for the town and want to do what's right. So I get really excited about the topic of women running for office. I think that we're all moms, right? We're all three of us, and we're all working, and we're all doing this. It's achievable. It's achievable. It's doable, and we continue to work hard and go even further. And there are more opportunities out there for us and for others that are coming up behind us.
Thank you. And before I go to President Matos, I just want to interject here. And first of all, I want to agree with you 100%. Women are better leaders. That you don't have to doubt it with me, because I definitely do believe that. But I also going to President Matos, and when you talk about being a woman and looking at things differently, so for instance, I was thinking, here we are in this virtual meeting, and I say that because I remember when Councilwoman Matos was elected president, we had a conversation, and she said to me, what I want to do, one of my visions and goals, Tomas, is to set the city council for the next 20 years. I want to bring technology, because you never know. And then COVID came and everything changed. And I always think about you, President Matos, because I remember that conversation. And I mean, what a vision, but most importantly, what a commitment to change the city council into the future. And here we are.
Thank you, Tomas. Yeah, I remember that conversation, and it's what I've been trying to do with the Providence City Council is that to make sure that the institution of the city council is strong, because we have to make sure that there is a check and balance. Just like President Rivera was saying, our job is to work with the mayors. We try to do our best to work in collaboration, but we have to agree to disagree. There are going to be times in which we're not going to be in agreement. And the way how I see the institution of the city council is the check and balance. Right now, I have to say, I have disagreements with the mayor, policies disagreement. We have different point of view in some occasions. In other occasions, we are in the same page. One thing that I have to say is, I can say about this mayor, his mayor is not corrupt, right? But what would happen if we get to a point in which the city has a mayor in that is corrupt? We need to have a city council that is so strong to be able to be the stop for all the craziness that could happen. So that's why I'm very passionate about making sure that the institution of the city council is so strong that it does its job. I don't want the city council to do the job of the executive. That's why we have the mayor. But I don't want the mayor's office to do the work of the city council. That's why we have a city council. So I want to make sure that the two institutions are strong and each one understands the role that we play in keeping government accountable. Council President Rivera was saying how things turned out for her running for president. In my case, it hasn't been easy, I have to say. So when she was speaking, I was thinking, oh, like, oh, I wish it was that easy. No. In my case, as many of you know, I was the acting president at some point. Unfortunately, I didn't win to stay as the permanent president at that time. So I was voted down. I didn't get the support, which some of the colleagues, which I thought I had the support. I ran for my reelection in the city council. The first time, my first reelection, I didn't have an opponent. For this second time, I had an opponent. And actually, I think a lot of people was counting me out. Didn't think that I could win my reelection. Didn't think that I could win to become president of the city council. That was not, a lot of people thought it was not possible. But I think that my approach has been this, is I think it's being at front, being honest with my colleagues in the city council, understanding that there are times in which we are going to agree, there's times in which we're not going to agree. Understanding and communicating to them that I want to respect them and their position. I want to understand that sometimes, even though there are issues that are important to me, for that council person, maybe that issue could be problematic, and I have to respect their position in trying to build consensus. And let me tell you, it takes longer to get things accomplished, but it's a way in which I make sure that the council members are making decisions, not because they feel pressure to make this decision, but because I have been able to provide them enough information, or I'm clear that sometimes I don't have to be the messenger. Sometimes my colleagues in the city council needs to hear why an issue is important, not from me, but maybe from a constituent or someone else. But I'm willing to take the time to make sure that my colleagues in the city council can come along and see why an issue is important. And yes, it's harder, it takes time, but I think it's the right way to do things. And just being honest and understanding that sometimes they are not going to be able to be with me in an issue. And I have to be able to work across the aisles, which sounds crazy because in Providence, we're all Democrats. You would think that is so. So we have Democrats and Republicans. But unfortunately, there are council members that have different visions than what the leadership has right now. But I try to keep the lines of communication open with them.
But I want to say, we all Democrats, but we also understand that, there is all type of Democrats, and that's part. Yeah. So conformity of party doesn't necessarily mean collegiality to do and look for the best for our city, and that's been proven over and over. And but I just have to throw that in there. A subject that I want to touch with all three of you, because all of the three of you have alluded to it, but I also haven't read about you, and I know that it's housing. Housing continues to be a big problem, no matter what, in Rhode Island. And I know each one of you have addressed it in different ways. There's a lot of conversation. The governor say, I think she just doubled the 25 million for housing to 50. But I would like to hear, based on your experience, what do you think is the solution for housing? Anyone?
So I'll begin. I think so. I do want to say, actually housing and access to affordable housing was an issue that right through college I had worked on. Actually, as a college student, back when Noreen Shawcross was the director of Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, and Nellie Gorbea was at Housing Works Rhode Island before she was Nellie Gorbea.
Oh, yeah.
So, I remember, I had alluded to this earlier. I just want to back up because I think, again, for young people and people who don't follow this issue, they don't understand really the core of or they have housing. So a lot of people don't think sometimes it's self-preservation. Me and my family have a house, we're doing okay. And, we work, we have a job, so there are a lot of underlying issues, but I think, all the way from working on those issues and I was in college, so much has changed, but a lot has not changed at all, which is kind of sad because in a small state like Rhode Island, we really should not have a high homeless population. But I think it comes down to affordability, right? So people say, well, Suzy, you're in Smithfield, right? Smithfield's doing well financially. Housing's not an issue there. Well, the affordable housing we have in my community is mostly for the elderly. It's senior housing and it's for the disabled. We don't have affordable housing for families, for single mothers with children. So they don't even qualify. If you're someone who wants to come to Smithfield or live in Smithfield, or you grew up in Smithfield and you need a safe place to live, we don't even have it for you. There's no inventory for families. We have 5% affordable housing in my town for families. The rest is for the elderly, the senior citizen population. So I think, Tomas, I don't know what the solution is per se, but I think the affordability is obviously an issue. The access, the inventory, right, is just not there. I think that there's a lot working against folks, right? It's a combination of you need to have a steady job, right? You need a place to live. Someone who's living in a shelter, especially if you have children, it's just a trickle effect. And if you don't have a place to live, and then you may not have a steady job, and it just goes on from there. So I think it's educating the Rhode Island community at large, not just the policymakers, right? We have a responsibility. Yeah. We have a responsibility to make sure that folks are getting access to affordable housing, but it's educating people in Smithfield, Central Falls, Providence, wherever, about why folks have these issues of affordability and access. And I think that we need to put more pressure, quite frankly, on our policymakers that have a direct impact, because these organizations like Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless and Housing Works, and they've been fighting for years, right? The Amos House and providing resources for years for Rhode Islanders, and we still have some serious issues. So with that being said, I do what I can here in my community, and certainly, I know that there are some innovative ideas out there, but I know that we haven't solved the problem yet.
Okay. So I can tell you from my perspective, I started actually getting involved in the community by being a member of Owneyville Housing, which now is One Neighborhood Builder. So I had seen firsthand the difference that affordable housing does, good quality housing does to a neighborhood. You can see just my neighborhood in Owneyville, the transformation that had happened because of all the investment that has been made to build affordable housing and to make sure that the people in the neighborhood are able to live in good quality, decent and affordable housing. And it has gotten to the point in which one of the biggest challenges that I have right now, or that we have right now here in Owneyville, is making sure that the neighborhood is continues to be affordable. That's the challenge that we have right now. There was a time in which people didn't want to say the word from Owneyville, or everything negative makes a reference to Owneyville about negatives. Right now, we are in a position in which we're a neighborhood that people want to live in. And the challenge that we have right now is to make sure that we have affordable housing available. So what we have been doing for the neighborhood, and what we have been doing in the city council is to make sure that whenever I support a project that is coming to the neighborhood, that has a combination of affordable housing in there. Good example of that is the 60 King project that opened up about 2 years ago. That is a mixed income housing, mostly affordable. Right now, there's going to be a new project coming on board soon. The Paragon Mills. In what I'm looking for out of that project is affordable housing to be included as part of the mix. And I understand that there's challenges right now for construction, into renovate a building, but if there's going to be support from the city of Providence, from the city council, what I ask for is that the project includes affordable housing on it. So those are the things that we can do. And the city council, we just made it stronger our housing trust fund to make sure that whenever we issue a TSA or a tax stabilization, 10% of those dollars are going to be dedicated for housing through the housing trust fund. So we've been taking little steps here and there, but I think I want to take things to the next level. I think we need to look at our zoning and make sure that we can add more density to the city of Providence in different areas in order to ensure that we're going to be building the housing that is going to be needed for the demand that is coming. So there's different steps that we're taking, but I'm going to highlight those. And the other thing that, before I transition, is the other thing that we're doing is we're trying to prevent homelessness, because we have been experiencing in the city council with constituents that call us with issues, and there is not help for someone that we know is about to become homeless. And that needs to change. The federal definition of homelessness, you really have to be homeless or on a shelter. But we have cases of individuals that either their house caught on fire and they get displaced and find themselves homeless because of that, paying up for a hotel to stay there, or because the city condemned the property because of code violation. So what we're doing right now, which is going to be on the council meeting for tomorrow, is we are putting a resolution to create a pilot program to assist individuals of victims of fires and in the case of displacement. So we provide funding for them so they can pay for the down payment and the first month of rent of a new apartment where they can go.
Sabina, I'm so happy you brought up, and I want to see a copy of that, because that's something that I love to have here in Central Falls. It's so hard for me to understand when somebody loses everything in a fire that we really can't help them. That there is not a pocket of funding that we can look into to help this family, that they're going to go to a hotel because the Red Cross is going to help them for a few days, and then they're basically homeless. And that we make all the calls that we have to make and nobody can help us place them somewhere. So, it's a conversation it hurts my heart that I have to have this conversation with the residents when they are in a situation and I'm trying to help them as a leader of the community, and that I really don't know who else to call. That we have to start as elected officials, GoFundMe accounts to help these families with their deposit and their first month's rent so that they can get back on their feet. That should not be happening like that. Funding should always be available for these emergency situations. COVID hit our undocumented community extremely, extremely hard here in Central Falls and Providence and Pawtucket. When these families were calling me and telling me that the landlords were going to go into their house and take their stuff out, or lock their door or change their locks, what was I supposed to tell them if there was no funding available for them? Mm-hmm. Us as elected officials, to me, that's our responsibility, and we need to be held accountable. Like, we need to continue making the calls, advocating for this type of funding. I know that I questioned a lot. There were organizations raising tons of money to help families in this situation, and my question was, this money is being raised, tons of money was being raised, but when is it going to start being used? Or how long do families have to wait before they can start getting some of this funding? Gentrification has been a topic of the city now for like the last 2 years, with the conversations regarding the train station, and myself and the council have continued having the conversation in making sure that, you know, we're all for economic development in the city, right? We want to see people come into our city and invest into our small businesses, but we also don't want to see the residents of this community, our community, be kicked out. So establishing the Housing Trust Fund, I think, was huge for us in the city. And not only establishing it, but once these developers start coming in here and start building, that we make sure that they start pitching into this Housing Trust Fund, and that we work with organizations like PCF Development, or give the opportunities to landlords in the city that needs to fix their homes and are going to give affordable housing to the residents, for us to continue helping them. It saddens me. It saddens me that there is really no plan in place, right? And that we get funding and the funding goes right very quick, which means there's a huge problem that we need to continue addressing, and us as leaders need to be held accountable, and we need to continue holding the leaders above us accountable, and making sure that they continue to advocate for this funding and that it's coming to the right places, so that we continue helping our families.
Thank you. And needless to say, the reason I brought that up, because it is an issue and it is a problem. But I also want to share with you that I grew up in Boston. When I arrived here, you know, my parents, we ended up in Boston. And I saw many transitions in Boston back in the 70s, 80s that I've seen here in Rhode Island. But one that I remember was when Boston changed their developments in downtown Boston, and eventually around the whole city. And it was that, you know, developers have to pay a housing fee into the city for housing and affordable housing. But what I see, the difference that I see in Rhode Island is that there is a fee that pays, but it is not necessarily for housing. And then at the same time, back in Boston, what they did with that fee, what everybody said, you know, they did some financing, local finances at the city and state level. And Boston, in the last 40 years, has built more affordable housing. It hasn't resolved the problem, but what I've seen is the amount of affordable housing that was built and redeveloped in that period of time, and compared to here, where, you know, we're still trying to get housing. So, but that was the reason for my question. Believe it or not, we are in the last 10 minutes. Time goes by fast when you're having a good time with, you know, all of this.
It does.
Right? And I don't want to abuse the honor that you're giving me with your time. So we're going to start heading towards closing, but I'll ask you, and some of you mentioned it already, is needless to say, future plans. Again, you're all still very young, but before I move into that, I also want to recognize Council President Matos, who this year celebrates the 10th anniversary of being elected, you know, to the City Council, and also the you know, being the first from the Rhode Island Latina Leadership Institute to be elected. And then, you know, needless to say, there's been many others. But again, you're still very young. And Senator, I was going to call. President Matos is termed out. We know Maria we already know where she's going. Suzy mentioned that she has plans and is running into the 10th anniversary. So what are your plans into the future?
So, I'll start. So first of all, because I know we're in the closing, I just want to acknowledge and recognize my colleagues from the City Council that supported me for me to become president, and that has been a strong supporter on the issues. And especially because we just talk about housing, I have to give a shout out to Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris, which is that she's been fighting really hard for the housing, affordable housing here in the city of Providence. So what is next? I'm term limited as a member of the Providence City Council, which is another conversation that probably is going to take us another hour, that I can tell you about the things that what it means to the city of Providence having council members that are term limited. Most of us that have been here for a while are term limited for the next election. I love the work of the city. So my plan is to continue to doing work in the city. So I cannot run for re-election in the city council. So what is going to be open is going to be an open seat, was going to be the seat of mayor. So that's what I'm looking at as the next step. So I'm looking at running for mayor, and that's what I'm getting ready for. So I'm going to follow the step of Council President Rivera.
Matos 2022.
Yeah.
Well, I'll jump in. I can't run for mayor because we don't have a mayor in Smithfield. So we have a town manager form of government. But I also want to acknowledge my colleagues on the Smithfield Town Council and the town manager and all of the incredibly hardworking town employees. I want to say, and I'm sure Maria and Sabina will agree, we could never do our jobs if it weren't for the hardworking staff of the cities or towns that we lead. They're, the police chief, the fire chief, the, DPW, everyone, they're the backbone, the town manager of the community. And I will say, having been the council president these last 2 years, I hate to say, Sabina, because we have a different form of government here. We only have 5 members on the council. We're all at large. It's been wonderful for me, actually. We all get along. We all get along. We've made a lot of progress. My plans right now are for the next, hopefully get reelected for my 5th term, which will take me into 10 years, as Tomas mentioned. And I just mentioned we have a $45 million elementary schools project happening. My son will actually be entering kindergarten with a brand new school. So how incredibly rewarding is it for me that I had a part in that. And all of the other 5-year-olds will be starting in a brand new state-of-the-art Rhode Island public school. We're building a new fire station in Smithfield in the 117 Route 7 corridor where Bryant University is in Fidelity. Right in that quadrant there in Smithfield is just so much opportunity for growth where Navigant, Bryant, Fidelity, we have a lot of areas for growth, and I'm going to be focusing on economic development and working with the Commerce Office to bring in, so the next couple years I have big plans, but looking down the road, I've looked at always been interested in running for the General Assembly seat because again, my passions and where I started were statewide issues, really affordable housing, just so many issues that I've worked on over the years are truly can impact not just the folks here in my town, but the entire state. So I think my next steps, can't say when, but will probably be to run for a seat in the General Assembly. But I respect both of my friends here who want to run for mayor in their communities. I think that's fantastic. And again, I do think women, when women run, they win. And when women win, they lead very well. So I know that Central Falls and Providence will be in great hands if the 2 of you are successful. And I look forward, to my continued service to my town in the state of Rhode Island.
Sabina, congratulations.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
You heard it here first officially.
Yes, this is exciting. I love sharing the space with both of you.
Yeah.
These are conversations that we should continue having. And I think we empower a lot of women that listen to us, and we need to continue empowering women to run for office. We lead different, we listen, we get things done, and we are changing the way politics works, which to me is extremely important, right? That we run for office because we truly believe and have passion for what we do, and we're there for the community. I already said, for those who weren't here before, I'm running for mayor. That's my next step. I'm overly excited, overwhelmed with the amount of support. I want to continue the work that Mayor James Diosa has done for the city. I'm committed to the residents of the city. And people, I tell everybody, you need to hold me accountable. If there's something that you don't agree with, you need to hold me accountable. I love going out and listen to the residents. I started making calls, and I have to tell you that I haven't had one person that has said no to me. So to me, that's extremely overwhelming. Sometimes, I have to tell people, pinch me, please, because this is, to me, this is also surreal and it's like a dream. But, I want to continue moving our education system in the city. For me, that's going to be one of my priorities for years. We have continued to fail our kids, and it's extremely upsetting. And it's time for all of us to come together, all the stakeholders. I add myself and say, I have failed the children of the city. This is not about the Department of Education. This is not about the board here in the city. This is about all of us coming together and trying to figure out what is the problem and what are the solutions for us to help our kids, because ultimately it's the kids it's our future, right? They are the future of the city. So we need to work really hard in trying to figure out how can we help our kids succeed, because right now we continue to fail them. I want to continue working with economic incentives for small businesses. And something that has been a passion of mine for the past few years is working with the immigrant community and making sure that we continue to protect them. You know, I'm huge on licenses. I think it's an advantage to the state for many reasons, for our undocumented community to be able to have a license and drive legally in our state. Affordable housing, which we already talked about, is something that we need to continue having the conversation about and advocating for in our city. And community safety. Our safety has been our community, has been the safest it's been in years. And we need to continue making that, doing that work and making sure that our community trusts our police department, and that we continue working together and making sure that that trust is there and that we're here to work together. So I'm overly excited. It's an honor for me to share the panel with the three of you. Thank you, Tomas, for bringing us together. And I think we need to do this more often.
And thank you to all three of you again. And all of three of you alluded to it. My intent with this is to start this conversation, but just in this conversation, imagine the power, not of the Latino community, but of Rhode Island. If we can get a dialogue among elected officials, and my plan is to start with Latinos, but eventually move forward. You know, we have many national organizations, but we don't have anything local that brings elected officials, Latinos in particular, together. So all of this leadership 2020, that's the vision, that we need to start working together. I was rereading the book, Latinos in New England, and there was something that caught my attention in the introduction, which I was aware, but I didn't realize that it was well documented. And what it was, it says, so in that study, the research was in all 6 states. And they mentioned Rhode Island was the most successful getting elected official. But one of the conclusions was that what they have found, that even in Rhode Island, where we had as much success as we did, and more success than the others, we had something in common with the other 5. And it was that there was not a cohesive plan, a cohesive policy plan for Latinos in any of those, in any of the cities. So again, I mentioned that because this conversation is looking into that, where we can bring, you know, everybody has been elected, everybody has a voice, and an example of that is what happened with Kobe, when, the 24 elected officials in Rhode Island signed a letter for the governor saying, we need change. We need you to address our community's need. That was powerful. And that's, to me, is an example of what we can start. You know, so the next cycle, election cycle, is keep these conversations going. So definitely we're going to keep doing it. We're going to do it more often. Thank you very, very much once again. I appreciate you giving me your time. And until we meet again, which will be soon, thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tomas. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.